Hi, everybody. This is your last video on transformations. These are some practice problems for rotations, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and jump into it here and do a couple of different types of examples for you. All right. So uh, this says for 1 and 2, we're going to deal with this lovely drawing here of this arrow. Okay, so number 1 says if the tip of the arrow moves to 0, 2, they want to know where the center of rotation is. So the center of rotation is literally the point that the shape is rotating around. For a lot of our problems, the center will be the origin, point 0, 0, but we have to see if that's going to be the case here. Okay, and I know there's like a little smudge right here, this little purple smudge. We can kind of ignore it. It's not supposed to be right there. Okay, so this says the tip of the arrow moves to the point 0, 2. So that means it's right here. So this point in green now is over here. Okay, so what that means is I kind of now can take this and draw in what this arrow would look like. So it's not drawn very well by me here, but here's what your arrow would look like. So the question is, where is it rotating around? Okay, and the rotation point should look like the middle of a circle, almost. So I can actually draw a circle on here. Okay. Okay, so I can draw a circle here that kind of captures, it's about, oh, hold on. I'm going to do this a slightly different way. So I'm drawing my circle here, and I want my circle to touch both of those green points. So I kind of have it here touching both of those green points, and you can see in the middle where that center is, right? You can see where um, those dashed lines kind of come together. So it looks like those dashed lines, right? And it did something weird there, but it looked like when that was up that those dashed lines were about right here. So that smudge actually ended up being kind of in the right spot. Okay, so my rotation point is the point 2, 2. Okay, and then this I actually already drew. So I already did number 2. I drew the clockwise 90-degree rotation, right? We took this arrow and we rotated it 90 degrees this way, right? Again, the best way to kind of do rotations, especially when you're doing them online, is to kind of sketch those circles in, and then kind of follow along the circle as you go. Okay, so give me a second to clear my screen, and then I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to do lots of examples for you with taking shapes and rotating them around different points. All right, folks, so what you see on your screen right now is a bunch of shapes, and there's a ton of them, okay? And they all have different vector notation uh, points of rotation and like how many degrees we want to rotate them. So I'm going to show you a couple of different like methods that you can use to rotate these. So I'm going to use almost like a counting method for the first one, and then I will try to show you the paper method, kind of similar to the one that I did in the last video on reflections. Okay, so I wrote out what these small text boxes were saying, because it was difficult to read if you don't zoom in really far. Okay, so this first one says I'm going to take this triangle ABC and I want to rotate it positive 90 degrees. So that's counterclockwise around point C. Okay, so essentially what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take a circle, and I want the center of my circle. Oops, hold on. All right, I'm gonna draw a circle, and I want the center of my circle to be at point C. So do you see where those dashed lines kind of intersect and they're on point C? Okay. And then I want the other part of my circle to line up with one of the other coordinate points that I'm trying to move. So that coordinate point, the first one I chose is point A. Okay, so here's my circle. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm rotating 90 degrees. Okay, so my middle point is here. Okay, my rotation point is point C, and I'm rotating 90 degrees counterclockwise. So I'm going to take this point and I'm going to move it 90 degrees this way, right? So if my original point, actually, let's change the color there so you can see this a little bit better. Okay, so I kind of want to look and say, okay, the distance between my center of rotation and the point that I'm trying to move looks like about 3 dots. So that means I need to go 90 degrees this way and draw my line out, right? So that it hits the edge of my circle, right? That's what the circle is there for. And I'm moving, this is 90 degrees. So you have that kind of little square in the middle. So that means my new point A is going to be right here. Okay, then I'm going to do the exact same thing for point B, right? So let me change the color of my circle here. So I'm going to start at point B. Oh, hold on. So if you're doing this in Cami with me, you have to press shift on the circle while you're drawing the circle so that the circle is actually a circle. Okay, so here I have my circle B. I'm lining up the dashed lines with the point C, which is where I'm rotating around. Okay, so now as I draw this, right, I can kind of see where my line is that connects point B and point C. So I need this to go kind of 90 degrees out, and it's going to hit one of these points. And so you can kind of see my 90-degree angle right there. So my new point B has to be right here. So this is B prime and A prime. So I can draw my triangle in now. Oh, hold on. Let's make that a different color. Okay, so I can draw my triangle in now. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so now here's the thing. If you're like, oh my God, that's so many circles, like that's a lot of stuff. I agree with you. You really only need the first circle, or you really only need like 2, maybe, just so that you can kind of see what's like where one point goes, and then you can kind of sketch what the shape will look like if you know where at least one of those points goes. Okay. Right? So really when you think about rotating, you want to think of it as swinging, right? So you have your original shape and you're swinging it either to the left or to the right a certain number of degrees, right? Just kind of going through and swinging it around. Okay, so give me a second. I need to clear this off because there's a lot of stuff going on here. And then I'm going to do a slightly different method with this green triangle here. Or I'm going to attempt a different method. We'll see how it goes. All right, howdy folks. So I'm going to attempt to show you how you can do this with a similar like paper trace method like I did with the reflections. Okay, so I have my lovely piece of paper here. I actually picked one that was blank this time, a little easier to see. Okay, so I'm going to start this the same way that I did my my reflection one. So you always want to start with placing your your page on top of the shape, right? So I took my paper and I'm putting it on top of the shape on my computer screen, okay? When you're tracing, you want to trace both the shape and the point that you're rotating around. So in this example, I'm rotating around point O, which is right here. So I need to make sure that when I draw this, let me uncap my thing here. Again, if you're doing this, please, please, please be careful. Do it with pencil or something like that, so that I'm only doing it with a marker, so that that way you can see what I'm drawing in the actual video. But if you're putting a pen or a marker up to your computer screen, don't do that. Like, do it with a pencil, and be very, very light and nice and careful with your screen, okay? So I'm going to take my page, here it is, and I'm putting it up. And I kind of have to turn mine because it's a little big on my screen here, but I'm putting dots where the 3 coordinate points are, as well as, right, and then I'm just kind of sketching in what this looks like, okay? So here's my shape, right? So this is, and then it's a good idea to label the coordinate points as well. Okay, so when I label mine, there's D, E, and F, and then that dot down at the bottom is point O. That's where I'm rotating around, okay? So what you're gonna do with this now, right, and really you should draw it like straight up and down like this. I had to tilt mine a little bit, but you should try to draw it straight up and down like this so that it's easier to turn, right? So literally what we're gonna do with this is put it back on the computer screen, take this and rotate it however many turns you need to rotate it in order to achieve the number of degrees that it says it wants you to rotate. So for this one, it says I want to take my triangle and rotate it 180 degrees. So every turn of of this paper is a 90-degree turn. So like from here to here, this is a 90-degree turn. If I do it twice, that's a 180-degree turn. So I'm going to take my paper and like see, like there's my hand, it's like up against my screen. So I'm going to take it, put my finger on the point that I'm rotating around, and I'm going to turn this once, twice, okay, to get this to line up, right? So just like when you did this with the line of reflection, that you wanted the line of reflection to line up after you flipped it, the same thing has to happen here, but with this point, with the point that you're rotating around. Okay, that point has to line up on top of where the original point was, so that that way you can actually, like, so that you know that you've rotated it far enough and that you've rotated it, um, that the points are going to be the right distance away from the center. Okay, so here, after I did this, after I went and I rotated this, point F was right here. Okay, point D was down here. Okay, and then point E was over here. Okay, so I can actually, let me turn on my Cami drawing tool with my lines and I can connect those. Oops, hold on. Sorry, need my actual line tool, not the pen tool. Okay, so here I'm connecting my dots, 1, 2, and 3. So you can see how essentially what we did is we took these points and swung them around 180 degrees, right? Same thing with point E and with point D, right? We took the whole shape and we swung it around, right? 180 degrees, okay? All right, so I'm gonna do one more for you. Give me a second to move my self here, okay? Because I did one with a counterclockwise rotation. So this was a 90-degree counterclockwise rotation. Okay, this one here was a 180-degree rotation, and then I want to do one where you're doing a negative 90-degree rotation, which is clockwise. Okay, all right. So here I'm going to take this very fanciful shape here, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise because it has a negative in front of it around point M. Okay, so this right here, point M, and actually, hold on, I'm going to change this to a slightly different color. Okay, so that is my rotation point. Okay, so I'm going to do this kind of using my like circle and counting method just because it's a little easier for me to do physically with my big screen and then with tracing all of this stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to look at here is say, okay, I'm rotating it 90 degrees clockwise. So it's almost going to fall. It's like it's sitting on a shelf and it's going to swing and like fall, right? The original shape looks kind of like this. So I'm just going to take it and it's going to swing and fall almost like this. Okay. So the way that you can kind of look at this is say, okay, well, point L is 4 units away, 1, 2, 3, 4, going to the right. So if I rotate it 90 degrees, this point, which was originally here, is now going to be down here. So point L is now 1, 2, 3, 4 units away. So that's L prime down there, right? We literally took it and we swung it this way, right? It's going to move really, really far because it's so far away from point M. But like point J, for example, which is right here, okay, is kind of like at this diagonal. Okay, so if it's going to go 90 degrees this way, now it's going to end up right here. Okay, and once you have a couple of points in place, you can kind of figure out what the shape is going to look like, right? Like H, so now I have J, I has to be like kind of out a little bit further, right? So like I is right here. Okay, H is 2 spaces away from M going up, so that means on the new one it has to be 2 spaces away going out. You can almost think of these lines that are already drawn as like hands on a clock. So if the line MH is at 12 o'clock, like this, when I rotate it 90 degrees clockwise, it's going to be at 3 o'clock, like this, right? So this is like H prime, and it looks like I have just about enough of my coordinate points, and then K would have to be down here. Okay, so now it looks like I have just enough of my points here that I can actually draw and connect these lines, or connect these points. Okay, so literally the M is your swing point. You're taking this whole shape and just swinging it around point M. Okay, so there's 4 other shapes here. Okay, so the how you want to actually rotate them is here. So the second row is this kind of pink shape and then this orange triangle. Okay, and then the third row is these 2 clear triangles at the bottom. Okay, so I want you guys to try this out on your own, give it a try, and then come back and check your answers against mine. So I'll see you guys in just a moment. All right, y'all. So here are my rotated shapes. So your kind of weird looking pink shape here, I took it and I rotated it 180 degrees. So for me, the easiest way to do that was to kind of count points and say, okay, I'm rotating around point Q. Point P was 1 unit to the left. So in the new one, it has to be 1 unit to the right. Okay, point R was 1 unit down and 1 to the left. So the new point R had to be 1 unit up and to the right, etc., etc. Right? Okay. Then for my lovely orange triangle, I'm rotating around point V, and it said to rotate 180 degrees. So point T went all the way over here, right? Point S ended up down here, and point U ended up here. So I literally took it and rotated it just around. This is my middle point. Okay, and then these last 2 were a little bit tricky in the way that they end up being drawn. Okay, but for this one on the left, I'm rotating, it says 90 degrees, so that's positive, so it's counterclockwise around point Z. So I just took the shape and I turned it one turn. Like if you trace it on paper, I turned it once counterclockwise and then put my new points where they were going to go. And then for this last one here, I had it said to rotate negative 90 degrees, which is clockwise. So I took all of my points and I swung them this way. Okay, I swung them 90 degrees clockwise in order to get this shape here. All right, so give me one moment. I've got one more example type for you, and then after that, we will basically be done with these rotations. So I'll see you in just a second. All right, y'all. So here we are. This is our last set of rotation problems. And these are a little bit more similar to what I did in the examples, in the examples video with the table. So I'm only going to do one of these, but there are two others that you can try if you wish. Okay. So this one, I have these shapes, right? And then I have a rule that it's asking me to abide by with my rotating, and then I have to figure out where the new coordinate points are. Okay, so here my rule for triangle ABC, which is this guy right here, is to rotate it positive 90 degrees. So remember, positive means I'm going to rotate it counterclockwise. So it's going to kind of move over here. Okay, so first things first is I need to figure out what my original coordinate points are. So point A is 2, 2, 6. It looks like the number is underneath the line. So this is 2, 6. Okay, B is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then C is the point 1, 1. Okay, now this is one of those nice ones because I have coordinate points, and I also have a rule that I can follow. Okay, so if we remember, if we go all the way back up to the top of this document, I gave you all of those functions for rotations. So remember, this was a rotation 90 degrees counterclockwise around the origin. So my rule for my coordinate points is I'm going to switch my X and Y and change the sign of my new X value. Okay, so my rule is X comma Y becomes negative Y X. Okay, so I'm going to apply this rule to these three coordinate points. So I'm going to switch my X and my Y, so 6 and 2, and then I'm going to change the sign of my new X value, my first coordinate here. So this is negative 6, 2. Right, then I'm going to do the same thing for point B, switch and change the sign of the first value. Okay, and then same thing for C, switch. I know it doesn't look like they're switched, but they are. And then change the sign of, oh, my mouse moved. Change the sign of that first value. So let's go ahead and plot those. So I have negative 6, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2. Okay, so there's A prime. Okay, then B prime was negative 6, 5. So there's B prime. And then C prime was negative 1, 1. So there's C prime. And now I can connect those dots. 1, 2, and 3. So see how it's the same shape, just turned 90 degrees. Okay. All right, so I'm not going to do these other two, but you can, just as a reminder of the rules. Okay, so for a negative 90 degrees, remember that's clockwise. Okay, so negative 90 degrees, the rule is XY becomes, I'm still going to switch my two values, but I'm going to change the sign of my my second coordinate point. And then this one down here is 180 degrees. So it doesn't matter which direction you go because you'll end up with the same thing. Okay, but the rule is you take your original coordinate points and you just change the sign of both of them. So negative X, negative Y. All right, you guys, so Congrats on making it to the end. I know there were a lot of videos and these were kind of long, but I'm hoping that this helped you kind of visualize and understand how to perform these translations and reflections and rotations. So I will see you all later. Bye.